Ciao a tutti, sono Matteo e questo è un nuovo video di Ropeflow, la corda non mente. Come detto in precedenza, questa è una disciplina che origina dal Weck Method di David Weck, chiamato originalmente RMT Training, ovvero Rotational Motion Training, che prevede il far roteare una corda intorno al corpo e non di saltarci attraverso. Questa disciplina si sta diffondendo in tutto il mondo molto rapidamente e da noi è una scena che ancora fatica ad affermarsi, ma ha già diversi personaggi di altissimo livello e che intervisterò in futuro in questa serie. Ma oggi è il turno di lui, sì, il papà del Ropeflow, David Weck in persona. Sono rimasto in contatto con lui su Instagram e oggi mi rilascia un'intervista solo per questa serie. Buona visione.
I would say that it was training for sports to get bigger, faster, and stronger and more precise. That was something that I was all interested in from a very young age. And then when I started personal training, when I got out of college, I would sort of invent exercise equipment that I used to train people in their homes, or using a broom handle in innovative ways to give somebody a good workout. So I was sort of doing that. And then when I conceived of the Bosu ball, that was my first invention.
Ok.
And I knew that it was going to be a success, so I devoted everything that I had to making it a success. That success begot other success because it gave me time and resources to continue my study.
It's a sort of primal research inside the tool as a broomstick, for example, or a bottle of water that can be something like a club or
Yep.
like this. It's fascinating because I discovered you and the RMT training just the last October, and I'm digging and digging inside the community. It's full of layers, and full of way of thinking. It's something like a Russian doll.
Yes, that's right. That's right. The microcosmic, macrocosmic sort of
Yeah,
continuity.
you never stop learning, and everyone give their contribute to a move or a pattern on a way of thinking, and it's a very young community, a very full of people integration and social network, because nowadays we are in the social media era. It's different from before.
Yes. Well, there is a rope flow community that is going all over the world with a lot of what I'll call devoted, intense practitioners of it, and
Yeah,
especially in Philippines and Indonesia.
I
I mean,
know.
they have groups of people doing it, and I see it as something that's not going to stop. And matter of fact, I've got a new invention. It's a different kind of jump rope that's never been done before, and that
Yeah.
comes out in about June, and it's very exciting because again, the rope is a fundamental tool that will educate and improve anybody,
Yeah.
because that integration and timing and precision is a very useful skill, and the rope basically does it better than anything else. Yes, well, the basic human functions that make us distinct as tool users and tool makers, the beginning in the evolution of humanity and its tool usage is sticks and stones,
Hmm.
because they exist already in nature, so you don't have to fashion them as much as you just have to learn how to manipulate them, and they leverage your power to eat food, defend yourself, etc. And then when cordage, the ability to tie it all together so that now you have a bow and arrow, now you have a sling, you leveraged your power of the sticks and stones with rope. The fundamental human functions for movement are locomotion, that's walking and running,
Yeah.
and throwing, right? We need to be able to throw, so we have a distance. You know, if you're going to catch a rabbit, you're not going to come up close to it. You got to have a range. So throwing is fundamental, and swinging is fundamental. So and I would include with swinging is catching as well, and that goes back to brachiation, where you catch the branch, and locomote in the trees if you're doing the brachiation. So the common theme in all of those fundamental movements is the ability to three-dimensionally rotate the core so that you can connect the core of your body to the proximal part of your body to the distal part of your body where you are expressing it. And the coil creates what we call a spinal engine, based in Grakovetsky's research, where it starts out with, like, if you think of the theory of evolution, how it's in water, and it's Piscean. That means that all it is just a side bend, and you don't have the burden of gravity. So this is a mammalian strategy. So the dolphin can do 3D, whereas the shark can do a lot less 3D. So basically, if you look at the fish, it's Piscean, it's just side bending, and microorganisms that side bend will actually create a segmented spine of ossification. In a scientific laboratory, they created a structure where you got this ossification, or this concentration of the hard elements that guided that Piscean side bending move. And then as soon as you get out of the buoyancy of water, now you have gravity to deal with. And so the amphibian or reptile has this like, they still have the side bending, but now you have to prop yourself up. As soon as you have to prop yourself up, it becomes a figure eight, and it's a continuity figure eight between the hips and the shoulders, or the shoulders and the hips, and that creates this three-dimensional rotation of the spine. And then the human gets to vertical and bipedal, and yet we still come from that same integration of the three-dimensional rotation of the proximal core creates a spinal engine, where the figure eights of the shoulders create the figure eights of the hips, and the spine is in between, creating that three-dimensional movement. Used function is walking. Right, you walk to the swimming pool, you walk to the, to where an ice skating rink. You're always walking to get around, because it's very efficient, and it's a total body global movement that comes back to this concept of the spinal engine. And in swinging and throwing and locomotion, you have to use that three-dimensional rotation, or you do not have power and precision. So that's the elemental level of how the foundational or fundamental level from which I made my departure point. It's first principles thinking. So rather than going to a lecture and getting PowerPointed for 2 hours, okay, whatever, that guy cited this, that, the other thing. You can't trust that. You have to go to physics and biomechanics and get to a first principles understanding, because there's plenty of research out there that's good, but there's also plenty of research out there that's not good. And the problem in our industry is that some people have built upon not first principles thinking. So they're more following, someone else's idea that wasn't based in the reality. And that's where we got this concept that you had to brace your spine rigidly in order to be powerful and to move and to throw and to swing. And that became dogma in about 2007 or so, that you had to brace yourself neutral in order to do anything well. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Bracing in neutral is an important skill for a heavy lift sagittal movement. But as soon as you shift your weight, you cannot be stiff and neutral in your spine, otherwise you're not shifting your weight efficiently. I think I was the first person to really speak up and say, hey, wait a minute, guys. The bracing your core in neutral is not what we want to do for locomotion, throwing, and swinging, and it's first principles physics and biomechanics that proves it, right? Like, I don't care what study was done or the person backing it. If it's not first principles, it's not accurate, so we don't build upon it. right? There's a lot of fear in our industry of being ostracized, being sort of, thinking differently than the collective, right? Nobody wants to go out on a limb and be wrong. So there's a lot of fear that keeps this momentum going, where they're not really progressing as far as they could, and they're building upon something that's going to wash away with the truth. The waves of truth will come in and wash away the misunderstanding. And that's starting to happen. It was really around the year, I'm going to say like the year 2000 is when I really got into the ambidexterity and the rotation and the usage of the hands. Because if I supinate my hand, I create a coiling action of that lat. Yeah. And if I pronate, I create a longer action. So I'm shortening the lat when I supinate, I'm lengthening the lat when I pronate. And it's very subtle. So if someone were to have spine surgery where they've been, certain vertebrae have been fused together or whatever, they have a spine that's compromised, how do you begin training that without putting it at risk? You do the hands, because the hands correlate to the core, and you build the capacity to do the hands, and then more and more with the hands, and you'll get a ratio of rotation that is appropriate for you and wherever you are with your spine. So you want to work from the outside in and the inside out, and they meet each other and they inform each other. And most people do not understand that outside in process.
Yeah.
So they don't understand the significance of the connection of the hands and the intelligence and capacity of the hands to help the entire body.
I found ironic that the human being are always trying to explore the outside world, but they really don't understand the inner world, their body, the perfect machine that we have since the day we born. We don't know how to use your hands. For example, you create hate way to use your hands. And
the core fist, where we're folding the fingers so we can triangulate the bone structure so that it has integrity, and that unites the extensors and the flexors. So you get a three-dimensional integrity as opposed to balling up a fist. This is useful for holding on to a stick or holding on to something, but it is not useful for irradiating better balance and a better tensional balance in the body, and it's not as good for striking with the hand or the fist. The way that I got to this information was by nonstop study, and a lot of time and resources to engage in that, but also feeling. Feeling is the only way that you can know something. If you don't know what orange juice tastes like, all the words in the world will never give you knowledge of what orange juice actually tastes like. And you can take a sip and now you know. The same thing is true with your body. If you can feel it and it associates with a faster time or a heavier weight or just better biomechanics, well, now you can know it. You can learn things, but you don't know things because you haven't experienced the thing. Yeah. That's a formula for failure. When you can manipulate your hands and the tool with that integration, that's what gives you the sensation of integration. And now you can know integration, and the rope does not lie, is 100% honest. And so if the rope doesn't fly true, well, then neither are you. Yeah. Whereas the rope, you're not in the middle of it, you're on the distal ends of it, and you don't let go of it. And the only time that you would let go of it is if you're advanced and now you want to do, send it out like a rope dart and bring it back in. Right? Yeah. And which I mean, and that can be fun, but there's less athletic carryover to that nuance than just learning the patterns and learning to circumnavigate. That is the best foundation that a human being can build for supporting your capacity to do all other things. Yeah. So having the ropes under your belt will facilitate your ability to assimilate new knowledge and new patterns faster and better if you have that experience with the rope rather than not.
In my experience, personal experience in parkour, for example, I always find that everything is connected, because parkour, it was like a doll made by several pieces from other disciplines, and so sometimes I talk to my students, and I say, move like crawl like a panther, or walk like a dog, roll as you want, move as you please, because don't think in tricks, okay? Go outside the tricks, because it's not a pattern, a single pattern on you have to follow this move because it's the move. No, you have to move and understand why you move like this. Why don't you move like that? Because it hurts. Why it hurts? And so a lot of question inside, outside yourself, a lot of talks with my students,
Yep.
because you have to merge with your body in somehow. Sometimes we listen to a lot of speech from very famous martial arts, as for example Bruce Lee, that talk about to be water. If you put the
Yes.
water in the teapot, it becomes the teapot, for example. And so you have to do the same with movement. And sometimes I focus myself outside the parkour world, because I can learn something from another way, in another way. For example, the rope, or capoeira, or acrobatics, swimming, whatever. Because everything is connected, because the tool is always the same, the body.
Yep. Well, and parkour is all about personal expression. So
Yeah.
you want to be capable of going to the next obstacle, challenge, opportunity, whatever you're going to define it as, and flow with it appropriately. And the whole key to parkour is don't decelerate too quickly. Like, so if you decelerate quickly,
You
it
lost the
hurts and it
momentum.
does damage. Right, exactly. So when you see a guy jump 30 feet, he will roll out of it. And okay, as long as that roll was perfect, there was no, impacting stress that created the
It's
damage.
transforming
Right?
the impact in a roll.
You're
amazing.
keeping it going and distributing that energy in an appropriate manner, that no individual parts are bearing too much of the load or the impact. And so that's that expression of the parkour. We're going to traverse the city here, and we're going to express ourselves, and it's incredible what the parkour athletes are capable of doing.
Yeah.
Just absolutely incredible. If you're talking about martial art, the most convincing way to convince somebody is to defeat them without hurting them.
Yeah.
So if you have the continuity of the rope, and you understand how you're able to now shift your weight without having to change your feet. So I can be on one foot, and I can shift from here, and I can shift from here, and I have perfect balance on each foot. Now when I put the feet together and I start shifting my weight, I can start to change position very rapidly. And that's the kind of thing where if you can flank your opponent and take yourself off the line of getting hit, you have a far greater chance of defeating them. And so if you're capable of demonstrating that, and then you basically say, look, this is the pattern with the rope that gives you that skill.
Yeah.
All you have to do is get good at this pattern, and now the translation to a better martial skill is right there for you, because your body knows it. Well, it's interesting too, because I study everything I can, and boxers jump rope, right? But there's one boxer who didn't jump through the rope 90% of the time, and that was Sugar Ray Robinson. So the footage that you're able to find of Sugar Ray Robinson, arguably the best ever, and there's plenty of argument, so not everybody feels that way, but there's plenty of people who do.
Okay.
So he was doing the rope side to side, he was doing it single hand, he was moving around because he just cared about the boxing. He didn't care about jumping through the rope. right? And he found that that was more productive for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, the open mind is an important aspect so that you can give something an honest try. Because trying dishonestly with a preconceived notion that this is useless will never let you discover, feel, know, and do, right? So you'll fail, not know, and not do, and think that you're correct when you're not, because your mind was so closed that you cut yourself off from the possibility of improvement. In 2004,
Okay.
that's when I said, okay, what if I don't jump through the rope? Now I have to rotate and I don't impact my body. I get to choose the intensity. So I can make it just as intense as jumping with, speed and resistance, a heavier rope. But I can focus on the skill of rotation, and then 4 fundamental patterns emerge from that practice. And you can now organize your body to understand the cardinal directions of north, south, east, and west. So you create the cardinal directions and the compass, exactly. And now you're able to now understand the intercardinal directions. And so you have the division of 8. And it's interesting because the hands are doing figure 8s. And when you do enough repetitions, your body then becomes mathematically precise in its ability to rotate. And the non-dominant side just levers up tremendously. And the rope simply tells you the truth about where you are, when you are, and how smooth and integrated it is. Without that feedback mechanism, it's very difficult to understand complete integration and continuity. So the rope is your guide or your teacher that will inform your movement like nothing else. I met one of the best jump ropers in the world. His name is Buddy Lee, and he was an Olympic wrestler, and he is a master with a jump rope. And when I watched him performing with the rope, I noticed that there were a lot of turns of the rope where he didn't jump through. So, it's coming to the side, jumping through, come to the side, comes to jump through. So what I did was I just said, okay, I'm going to learn all the stuff there is to learn without jumping, because that way I won't get tired. I'll be able to practice a lot more without impacting myself. And I'll do it. And I just made the decision. I'm going to do it for 30 days, and I'm going to do it so intensely and see how good I can get in 30 days. And I was doing it for hours every day. I'd be out at night for 5 hours doing it. So I needed to download this. And I had studied some martial art from bad teachers who, didn't really learn anything. But as soon as I felt the rope, I was like, oh, okay, now I can understand the martial, right? Because I know how to move my body where and when that's appropriate. And then what really inspired me was the story of David and Goliath. Because as I was doing the rope, I was like, this is how he did it. You could literally kill a giant and be super because in that day and age, that was the most advanced weaponry in terms of range and distance. So I don't care how big and strong you are. If I can hit you from 60 yards away, you can't touch me. And that inspired me to say, oh my gosh, there is so much athleticism that is latent in the human body. And when you master the rope, it just brings it out. And suddenly you're better at everything you do. You're better at tennis. You're better at golf. You're better at basketball. You're better at moving your body, and you're better at learning the next skill. And there's cognitive benefits because you're constantly crossing the midline and integrating the brain. And so you actually develop a better foundation for intellectual thinking. It is so profound what the rope can do.
It was mind-blowing that just a simple rope, it's a few inches of cotton or I don't know, nylon, and and it's a new world of thinking, because my mind starting to understand the way to move my body. For example, there's a lot of side effect that practicing rope flow. For example, when I finish a session, a very hard session, for example, when I take my phone in my hands, I start texting in not like
wow.
this, not like dum 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 dum.
Oh wow,
I
that's
text
interesting.
with both the thumbs in just a few seconds. When before of that I touch the letters on the keyboard like this. My name is Matteo. No, it's dum 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 dum.
What the other thing that a rope does is it allows you to ramp yourself up, to put yourself into this performance state where you have this harmony of the brain waves.
It's like a bubble.
Because you've done it. Yes. And what happens is your brain waves start to balance, and you now become more focused. And so even when you're not in the mood to train, you can start really slow with the rope, right? So you're not tiring yourself out. You build the speed, you build the integration. 3 minutes later, you're ready to go. You're no longer not in the mood. You're like, let's go get it.
Yeah, it's true. For example, just yesterday, it was a very hard morning for me because of a lot of things in my life. And so I started a session with a friend of mine that I try to teach to him what I know about rope flow. And so I starting swinging figure eights, and then I say, I'm totally distracted today. I can't be focused. And so I try to close my eyes, just being in that bubble. And in a few seconds, I found my focus. I found my way to connect with the ropes. And after that, it wasn't a bad day anymore.
That's fantastic. Well, you use the ropes properly. That's great.
Thank you. Thank you.
My basic strategy is both sides utilized, and in every sense. So if you can enhance the polarities of things, then you have more space in the middle to be better at everything. So the polarities would be right, left, up, down, fast, slow, hard, soft. And when you can master these polarities, both sides utilize the non-dominant side. Let's educate the non-dominant side. How do we do that? Well, we compare and contrast, and we compete and we cooperate with the dominant side and download the intelligence of the dominant side. Be very patient so that frustration does not take you off the course or end your journey, right? So if the rope hits you in the head, okay,
don't worry.
Just take a breath and understand, okay, that's okay. So you don't let yourself get frustrated, and you get to first base in terms of, okay, I've got one pattern down. Okay, now I can build the next pattern. Now I can build the integration of the transition between the two patterns. Now I can go on to learn a third pattern and a fourth pattern, and then everything else derives from those four patterns when you're training with the rope. Join the movement and share the flow with yourself, and that practice will enhance your life in many more ways than just physical. And that your practice will now be the motivation, information, and inspiration for someone else to engage in a practice. And we can literally enhance physical education all over the world, because a rope is very democratic. You can find a piece of rope just about anywhere, right? There was a little girl in Guam who found a rope on the playground, and she taught all the other kids what we call the dragon roll, which because her surrogate father was one of our coaches who taught her. So now it's like, oh my gosh, like kids, poor kids who don't have a lot of stuff can roll a rope. It's not like you have to buy this expensive thing.
Yeah.
And so it's a movement for the people, and it provides the best foundation for physical education that I know. And the more people who do it, the easier it becomes for the next person.
Well, I don't know what to do. You are a volcanic bomb of energy. You always give me a new way of thinking about what I do, and somehow you say a lot of things that I already know, but you gives a different way to say this to gives to people, and it's important to me because I'm a performer and a teacher, and I like to understand what is between the disciplines, because there's a lot of thing inside and outside what I do as a sport, as a performer, and sometimes it was harder to me to let other people understand what I'm talking about, because I don't have the proper terms or the proper way to make people understand what I'm thinking, because sometimes it's just all in my mind. It's not easy to give it outside, and so I totally respect you for what you did, because your past is amazing, because you discover a very useful tool that people all over the world are using, and you create a lot of tools like the pulsar, like the club, like the ropes, and it just you said it's like rock and sticks. It's just the same.
Yeah, I mean,
You
it's
enhance the rock and sticks.
and what we want to do is we want to apply these principles to anything. It's not just my equipment, it's all equipment. You now have options to focus on. Optimizing your carryover is the key. So I don't care about any particular exercise as much as I care about what I can do having performed that exercise. So I don't fall in love with the exercise unless the exercise rewards me with greater capacity in that which I want to do.
For example, a lot of time during the parkour session, it happened this. A student comes to me and say, "Oh, I can't do this because it's not my side." And we call it the dark side, okay? The non-dominant
Right.
side is the dark side for us. And always say, the dark side doesn't exist. It's just you try to focus yourself and try to use it every sides of your body, because you're born with the ability to be focused on this, to master all of this. But it wasn't easy, because maybe you are left-handed or right-handed, or maybe you're a little bit dexterity or ambidexterity. For example, my mother is left-handed, my dad's not, and so I'm in the middle. And sometimes I find myself easier with that side or other side, and so it's not easy to explain to a student that there's no dark side. And in Ropeflow,
Well, let's turn the lights on. If there is, well then,
yeah, and it was funny for me starting the Ropeflow and discovered there's no dark side too there. It's the same. It's just the same. And so I asked to my students to try the ropes with me, and they discover that they immediately start doing maybe the bowler pattern, with the same
Yep.
side, with the right and the left, because the repetition is, and so the bowler start continuing over and over and over and over, and you say, whoa, I do with the right and the left at the same time, and I didn't expect this. It's amazing.
Right.
Yeah, it's like movement therapy for the brain, for in a neurological way. Okay,
Yes.
it's amazing. You discover a very useful tool, and thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. It's about being where you need to be when you need to be there. It's positions and transitions. And the rope has no fixed position. It's all transition. And that gives you infinite position. If it's about rope flow, I want to help support it, because I believe it's a movement that can spread all over the world and help people for generations to come, because it's just a very intelligent usage of a very simple but powerful tool.
Yeah.
Great. Well, definitely let me know when it's all edited, and
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
share it. Yep.
Maybe it will be a serious video, because
Yeah.
I have
Sure.
to talk
Sure.
about David Weck. I have to talk about the rope flow in a very focused way. Maybe I create a few Italian tutorials about rope
Yes. Yes.
flow.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah,
Great.
yeah. Because in Italy, for example, in Italy we are few rope flow practitioner. For example,
Yeah.
you mention one of them on your stories today. It's good flow, good
Oh.
flow. It's from
Oh
Milan.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Great.
yeah. It's
Milan, the fashion capital of
yeah,
Italy.
yeah. I met him just a month ago in Milan, because my girlfriend is from Milan, and so I goes there. I say, "Hey, Filippo, can we train together?" Yes, and he teach me how to master my sneak pattern that it was
Love
hard
it.
to
Oh,
me. And I
that's
say, "No,
amazing.
man, you're so good." And I discover a lot of people from Bologna, a lot of people in the world, and nowadays in Italy the rope flow community is still young and
Yes, it's very
little.
young, and yes,
Yeah,
and you're
and I
helping to
want to
build
be
it. So
part
I'm
of
very
this.
grateful.
I want to be part of this because I think I have the tools to help the people like I did in the parkour world with my channel and my videos.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
thanks to you too